Hey guys, today I'm back with some dinner ideas. I really find a lot of comfort in cooking and it's experimenting, and I have more time to cook, so I've really been playing around, and these are some dinners that I've absolutely been loving lately. One is fish, two are meat, and one is vegetarian. The first is a salmon dish with some really yummy warm spices. Then I did kind of this lemon garlic chicken pasta. Another dish I really loved is this stuffed meatball dish with pesto and pearl couscous. And then finally, this is a vegetarian dish inspired by a trip to Mexico in February. So let's get started. Firstly, I'm going to be showing you the salmon dish. I'm not going to lie, I did not create this. This is a recreation of a HelloFresh dish, and I actually have the leftover shawarma spice blend that HelloFresh uses. So I will link this Reddit post that I found down below because I'm definitely going to need to recreate this mix. It's like warm and delicious and just not really a combination of ingredients that I would normally use. So for this dish, I have salmon, zucchini, asparagus, the spice blend, and then for the sauce, I have garlic, lemon, and mayo, and then couscous. And of course, you can use any vegetables, like green peas would be really good in this, edamame, spinach. You could do this with chicken too. I like salmon. I kind of get a little bit sick of it, but it does have, good omega-3s and stuff in there. So I haven't really been counting my calories. No, I haven't been counting my calories at all during this kind of quarantine or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So starting with the asparagus and the zucchini, I'm just going to be chopping that up and putting it in my air fryer. You can easily pan fry it, but this way I didn't need to use any extra dishes. And as I mentioned, you can kind of use any vegetables. For me, the key is mixing up the vegetables I use, but also not cooking them too much. I feel like growing up, you eat a lot of boiled vegetables, they're soft, they're lifeless, and cooking them a little bit less than you think and giving them some crunch and texture really is important to me. But you can kind of cook it however you like. You could easily roast them in the oven too, but you know that my air fryer is my life. Then for the vegetables, I'm just using a little bit of spray oil, some salt, some pepper, and putting over some of that shawarma mix. And I really love HelloFresh, but we were kind of like, let's, try and create a week like we're doing HelloFresh and have dinners planned every night instead of kind of scrambling to put things together. And I believe I cooked these in the air fryer probably for about 6, 7, maybe 8 minutes at about 370, 380. I'm sorry, I am really not a recipe person. And I know some people are really recipe people. I am just not. So I'm just cooking the couscous to the box instructions. And funny story, kind of disgusting story, I actually didn't end up eating the couscous because I was trying to use up things that were in my pantry, and that sucker went bad in 2016. Like, I moved to Toronto in 2016. I don't understand what happened, but that's what I get for trying to do a pantry cook. And it was vile. It tasted like an old church smells, if that makes any sense to you. So I ended up doing it basically kind of a low-carb dish by accident, which is very unlike me. So it still works without the couscous, but if you're using couscous or anything, just check the expiry. And for the salmon, I'm just dividing it up. For me, I don't like to meal prep salmon, but you could easily cook the couscous ahead of time, make the sauce ahead of time, and the vegetables even ahead of time. And then when it comes down to it, you can just fry the salmon and have the dish kind of ready, because I'm a big advocate of meal prepping, but I just don't like having the entire dish cooked. So I just portioned up the salmon. And then I'm just adding on the spice mix. In the pan, I did cook it with a little bit of oil. I generally don't cook with a ton of oil, but obviously it tastes better when you do. So I did tonight because, why not? And then for the sauce, this kind of, I never would have expected it to be good like this. And even if you don't like mayo, my boyfriend does not like mayo or lemon really that much. And he loved this sauce. So I feel like the key to this is almost equal portions of lemon and mayo, and I feel like it really balances it out and becomes less mayo-ish, if that makes sense. And it's just kind of like a creamy, really bright, nice sauce on top of the dish. And I bought a microplane, which is this tool that I'm using here. And I've really been loving that. I feel like I really love it with garlic too. It just gets things finer than a grater and is obviously much easier to use than the side of a cheese grater. So I just use a little bit of lemon, and be careful when you're putting lemon in the dish. You don't want to start grating in the white bits because that can get a little bit bitter. So I'm using the rind, and then I will also use the juice as I mentioned. And then I'm gonna go ahead and grate in some garlic. Keep in mind this garlic is raw, so it's going to be quite a bit stronger. Really depends on your preference. You could always roast your garlic ahead of time and that will have a little bit of a lighter flavor, but I find I do really like the raw garlic. It's really good for you too. And then that is pretty much it. So you can see I'm adding my vegetables on top of that musty couscous, and then gonna place the salmon on top and drizzle it with the sauce along with a little bit of extra lemon, salt, and pepper. Moving into dish number 2, I'm going to be making the fettuccine with chicken. So I'm using some Cotija Smart Fettuccine. I think it just has like some extra fiber in it. Then I cooked some chicken thighs in the air fryer just with a little bit of paprika and garlic powder. You could easily do this in advance or use like some leftover chicken or one of those rotisserie chickens. Then for my sauce, I'm using flour, some Parmesan cheese. I know this is probably like the blasphemous Parmesan cheese, not the real stuff. Then cremini mushrooms along with some broccoli. I really, really love broccoli in these types of dishes. And then I'm also going to be using some garlic and lemon. Oh, and also some skim milk. I almost never buy like real milk anymore, but I really find in cream sauces, it's just better than almond milk. But you could absolutely use almond milk. I mean, I'm using cheese, so it doesn't really matter. It's not like I cut out dairy, but I just put almond milk in my coffee. Anyways, for the veg, I'm going to be not cooking them in the air fryer. Wow, because the chicken was cooking in there. So I am going to be cooking it in a pan. And again, my advice is to not cook it too far because then you're going to put the pasta and the sauce and it's going to cook a little bit further, and I really love to have that crunch. So just a little spray oil and mushrooms and broccoli, and again you can use any veg in here that you'd like. Dropping my pasta into some boiling water using some fettuccine as I mentioned, and then starting off for the sauce, my microplane was in the dishwasher or being washed, so I'm using my grater, but I'm putting in quite a bit of garlic, then putting in that much of butter, so about a tablespoon and a half of salted butter, and then I'm going to just kind of stir that together and let the garlic and butter really infuse together. So you can see it's starting to bubble, the garlic is slightly starting to brown, and then I added in like a tablespoon of and a little bit more, you can see I just burned my freaking whisk, of flour to make, I guess it would be called a bechamel sauce, but I know people get really, really picky about sauces and Italian food, etc. So I'm just gonna call it a creamy garlic sauce, and whisking it all together and letting that flour cook because you don't want that raw taste of flour in your sauce. And I do just wanna say, I'm gonna be adding in half a cup of milk and then half a cup of the pasta water because the pasta water has starch in it and helps everything thicken, if you didn't know. So always good to hold on to your pasta water if you're making some kind of sauce. But I do just want to say, I have been very vocal on social media regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, and I've held off on posting for the past week. It's been an incredibly hard week for me professionally and personally for a number of reasons, and I will continue to support the cause, continue to use my voice, and continue to try and make change by both educating people, educating myself, and working with brands, both behind the scenes and on social media. You saw I called a couple out last week, but I do need to continue to use my voice and express myself through videos because my channel is so important to me. And as a Black woman, I don't want to stifle my own voice and my own business and my outlet during this time. So I'm just trying to find that balance, and I hope you can respect that. So anyways, back to the cream sauce. It's just like, it's so hard to transition, it's like, here's a cream sauce and also the world is an unjust place. It's really hard to find that balance, but I turned up the heat a little bit and boiling it, not completely, but just trying to leave it a little bit to thicken and for the garlic to further infuse into the sauce. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in, again, not like a baker's tablespoon, but just a normal tablespoon of some more of that Parmesan cheese, about a tablespoon and a half. So here we have the vegetables. They are more or less cooked to my liking. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and add in the cooked pasta. And I'm adding in the sauce now as well. And I have the heat on like maybe 1 or 2. It's basically off. So I don't really wanna cook anything any further. And there's a little bit of residual heat in the pan. Finally, I took the chicken thighs off the bone. We also removed the skin. It was just like this chicken bone-in skin-on was on sale. You could use any type of chicken or tofu or no meat at all. And then here is the finished dish. I topped it with a little more fresh lemon, some Parmesan, and I like chili flakes on mine, and it was so delicious and incredibly filling. Moving into dish number 3, using some lean ground pork. You can see that big sale sticker on there. I don't think I've ever bought lean ground pork, but it was cheap. So here we are. You could use turkey, beef, whatever. Tri-colored couscous. This dish would be great with pasta as well, but we actually had the other pasta the night before, and I mean, couscous is essentially pasta. But anyways, some feta cheese, some mozzarella cheese, Parmesan would be great on this, but I didn't want to use 3 cheeses. Then I'm also using some Classico basil pesto. Pesto is so yummy. It has so much flavor. And using that, and then some marinara. And again, use what you have, use what you like. We're trying to use up things that we have in our fridge. Spinach is such an easy thing to add into a dish. And then I'm using a bouillon cube, or you could use chicken stock, something like that. And then for my spices, I have paprika and oregano and some garlic powder. And again, I cannot take full credit for this dish. This is another rip-off HelloFresh. I don't think I need to say it. This video is not sponsored by HelloFresh because I'm just ripping off the dishes. But we did purchase the boxes with our own money, and I really liked them. So I'm just starting out by grating the mozzarella cheese. This is partly skim, I believe, pizza mozzarella, which is generally lower calorie than regular mozzarella, but still really cheesy and stretchy. And then I'm using couscous, which hadn't gone bad, and I actually cook it in the bouillon cube. That's something I learned to do from HelloFresh. I really like it because I feel like it challenges me to do things that I normally wouldn't do. Like normally if I wanted a dish like this, I would never take the time to stuff a meatball, but by golly, is a stuffed meatball delicious. Normally I would just like fry up the ground meat, top it with cheese, and it's kind of like slightly pushes me, not necessarily out of my comfort zone. I'm very comfortable cooking, but I don't often challenge myself where I take, cut a lot of corners. So for the ground meat, just seasoning it with salt, pepper, paprika, and oregano. And then just kind of dividing up the patties using our food scale just to make sure that they're all kind of even size. And my boyfriend is wearing dish gloves because he has eczema and doesn't like to, tries to avoid washing his hands too much. So this way he washes the gloves instead of his hands. If you're wondering what's with the gloves and the hands, that's what's up. Then just adding the mozzarella cheese to each of the meatballs, and then I'm adding the pesto over there on the side to the couscous, and I'm using this kind of silicone barbecue brush because we just got these new stainless steel pots and I'm trying not to scratch them up. And I should have put the spinach in right at the end of the couscous cooking. I forgot, but we still had to cook the meatballs anyway, so I'm just adding in the spinach bit by bit, and we'll cover it up so that it will wilt. And again, such an easy way to get greens in. Adding in the mozzarella cheese, and then I decided, unlike the HelloFresh meal, to add in some feta because I feel mozzarella is really good and stretchy, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor. So that was why we added in a little bit of feta, and I thought that was so yummy. So they're just kind of like flattened out patties, and then I'm going in and kind of balling them up, and I will be cooking them in the air fryer. Cooks really simply. I think it was under 10 minutes at a heat of like 370, but just kind of experiment with your air frying and all cooking. Cook it for a little bit less than you think, check on it, and you'll learn, your settings and your oven, but quite simple. And I also, over time have gotten to learn my own air fryer, which I will have linked down below. And then all is left to do is pretty much plate up the dish. If you are someone who is trying to watch your weight or manage your weight, you can eat what everybody else in your house is eating, but just kind of mind your portion. So for me, you can see my portion is much smaller than the other one. You can also add more vegetables into yours, or a little bit more protein, a little bit less cheese. And that way you don't feel left out, because, sometimes I will eat a ton, and other times I'm just trying to manage, especially where the pork is a little bit fattier, it's got 2 types of cheese, it's got pesto, and I still felt very satisfied after this meal. So yummy. And my cat was very interested in it as well. You'll see her sniffing while I'm trying to get that beauty food shot. She's like, hello, can I have some of this? So yum. Technically, this is a lunch I've been eating all week, but it's so freaking good. I wanted to show it to you. I have Cotija cheese, which for me is essential. It is a Mexican cheese that's kind of somewhere in between. I would describe it as like a feta and a halloumi. Then I've got corn tortillas, some refried beans, and you'll see I have everything in Tupperware here. So it's like, it's not like it's meal prepped, but it's ready for me to assemble every day at lunch. So this is similar to the sauce I made in the first recipe, but I added a little bit of jalapeno juice and cilantro and blended it all together, and a little Greek yogurt. So good. Then I've got a tomato, some iceberg lettuce, which I like to call junk food lettuce. It's just the best. I don't care what anyone says. No nutritional value, but I mean, you know, get off my back. And then the Summer Fresh roasted red pepper sauce, which I've raved about before, that I love and is so good. So starting out, instead of having like, I believe they're called sopas, which are like a deep fried tortilla, I just take the tortilla, put it in my air fryer with a little bit of spray oil and salt, put some spoons on top of it because it tends to fly around, and cook them for about 5 minutes at 400, and they get so crispy. And this way I'm literally saving half the calories. So it's not always about like, I want a crispy tortilla, I can't have a crispy tortilla, or I have to have a crispy tortilla and go over your limit or whatever it might be. If you are concerned about your food intake, sometimes you just have to get a little bit creative. And I'm telling you, this meal, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything at all. And I honestly think it's better than the pre-made like fried ones because it's warm and it's toasty, and those other ones are hard to store because they crack so easily. So anyways, just chopping up tomato and chopping up my iceberg lettuce. This Cotija cheese I purchased at a store in Kensington Market here in Toronto called Cheese Magic. I've also bought it at La Tortilleria or something like that, at a Mexican store in Kensington Market, but they're closed right now due to COVID, but I did find it there. You may be able to find it at other grocery stores, but I have not seen it at any of the grocery stores near me. So when you're taking these tortillas out of the air fryer, use a cloth to remove the spoons or whatever you got in there. It is hot, hot, hot. And just listen to how crispy. She gets crispy with very little added oil or extra effort. So now that only one of them really cooked to my liking, so I put the other 3 back in for an extra 2 minutes just so I could get them all crispy. And then all it is a matter of assembly. So I heated up my refried beans. These are a refried black bean that just comes in a can. You can also use refried pinto beans. Honestly, I've made this with ground turkey and I prefer it without the meat. I'm like, the meat just gets in the way. I just want like the crispy and the salty cheese and the sauces. And again, it's still totally satisfying, but you could easily add meat to this if you want to. But it is a great kind of meatless Monday, or if you're trying to cut back on meat, you don't miss it here. Just crumbling the cheese directly on top. I've done this a few different ways. I find crumbling is just the easiest. You could grate it. It like kind of starts to melt, but doesn't really melt. And like I said, it is so salty and so freaking good. And then I'm adding on that kind of green sauce. This was actually something you'll see in another recipe video that I used as just a dip, but I had it left over. So I started adding it to this dish and really, really liked it. And then adding on my chopped tomatoes and the iceberg lettuce. For the roasted red pepper sauce, I'm not even a big roasted red pepper person, but I'm telling you, that sauce is like some kind of cheesy, creamy deliciousness, good on pizza, good on tacos. I cannot recommend it enough. In this instance, I do put a little bit on top just so it looks like nice in the pictures, but normally I just keep it on the side and dip it in as I eat it. I've had this every day for lunch for the past 6 or 7 days and it's so good. So that's everything from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do recreate anything, please send me a picture on Twitter or Instagram. It's literally my favorite thing in the world to see you recreating these meals, even if they're not exactly the same, if I inspired you at all. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.